The 100th anniversary of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops this year coincided with a historic gathering of ordained and lay faithful who were eager to energize their church and foster a spirit of missionary discipleship. This unprecedented and historic convocation of Catholic leaders in Orlando, Florida, was universally viewed as a crowning achievement for the Bishops' Conference and an opportune way for the bishops to inaugurate their second 100 years of service and leadership.
It's tough to forecast what the future is going to hold, but the best way to forecast what the future is going to hold is look back at what the last century did.
What was to become the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops was first launched by the U.S. bishops in 1917 during a moment of national crisis. This deadly global conflict demanded the mobilization of the entire country, and Catholics joined together to do their part. National Catholic organizations responded to the call to support troops going into battle and to support their families back home. The U.S. bishops as a whole wanted to make their contribution as well.
The bishops felt they wanted to make sure that they were directing the Catholic effort and not just kind of watching it take place. And the best way to do that was to get all the bishops together to figure out how we act as a national group of bishops to help lead Catholic efforts in various areas of needs regarding our own country.
To this end, the bishops founded the National Catholic War Council. Not only did the NCWC help organize Catholic war efforts, it also worked with the U.S. government to help alleviate the suffering of the victims of war. And it built a robust Catholic military chaplains program. After the war, the bishops changed their wartime organization's name to the National Catholic Welfare Council, and later again to the National Catholic Welfare Conference.
So from that moment of tragedy and national and worldwide challenge, in 1917 came this magnificently unified, credible voice with greater amplification in the national and worldwide scene.
During the years between World War I and the U.S. entry into World War II, the U.S. bishops used the NCWC to advocate for labor rights, speak out against religious persecution, warn about the growth of secularism, issue statements on the economic crisis at the start of the Great Depression. During World War II, the NCWC created Catholic Relief Services to organize the Church's humanitarian efforts, including the resettlement of refugees. Catholic priests again joined in the war effort in the U.S. Chaplain Corps, ensuring that millions of Catholic soldiers received pastoral care. The 1950s saw a boom in church and school construction as U.S. cities and suburbs expanded. But changes were in the air with the growth of the civil rights movement at home and the Cold War abroad. The 1960s then ushered in sweeping social changes throughout the United States, and change came to the Church as well with the Second Vatican Council. Vatican leaders had been watching how the U.S. Bishops' Conference operated as a formal organization, and they liked how it worked. It was after the council that the organization divided into the National Conference of Catholic Bishops and the U.S. Catholic Conference.
we really are unique, and our experience brought us all the way up to the Second Vatican Council, at which point this was recommended for all the bishops' national groupings to have conferences. We became, in a sense, almost a model for the rest of the world.
In the last decades of the 20th century, the U.S. bishops distributed millions of dollars in relief aid to Africa, issued a statement on AIDS, became a unifying voice for pro-life activities, and released pastoral letters on the economy and on the threat of nuclear weapons. As a structure, the U.S. bishops merged its two organizations into one, naming it the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops in 2001. The conference continues to speak out on major social issues of the day: racism, religious liberty, and immigration. And the conference also led the way in addressing one of the most challenging and painful internal issues, the clerical sexual abuse crisis.
Sometimes we have to talk about neuralgic and painful stuff. So the conference can sometimes serve as almost an examination of conscience. How could we have ever tackled what was a national problem of the sexual abuse of minors by priests? How could we have done that alone?
Though many of the challenges the U.S. bishops face have changed during the years, their priorities remain the same.
We have a much more compelling voice in national issues when we speak as one. We're talking about immigration. Now, to speak in a united way on such a controversial topic, that's sure a lot more compelling than having each individual bishop doing it.
And the bishops have been steadfast in recognizing that while the work of the past 100 years may have come from the conference, it was often possible because of the generosity of the Catholic faithful. The Conference of Catholic Bishops, founded at a time of great national trial, became a unifying force for the Church in this country, and ultimately a model for the rest of the Catholic world. Energized by the convocation and the leadership of Pope Francis, it begins its second century of service on behalf of U.S. Catholics and the nation they love.